No one asked where she came from, but the glances said enough. The rain hit like a warning, sharp, relentless, cold. It slicked the empty back roads of Harrow County, the kind of place where every porch had a flag, and every cruiser knew which cars belonged. Tessa Monroe sat behind the wheel of a modest gray sedan, shoulders square, breath slow, palms flat on the steering wheel. A second passed, then two. Red and blue lights pulsed in her mirrors, bouncing off wet asphalt and the gloss of low-hanging branches. The cruiser door groaned open. She saw the shape before she heard his boots. Wide stance, slow walk, hand on the holster, not out of need, but habit. The officer tapped the window once, sharp knuckle against glass. She rolled it down halfway. The damp air rushed in. "License and registration, sweetheart," he said, voice smooth with authority. "And let's drop the attitude this time." No name, no explanation for the stop. Tessa handed over her documents without a word, her face unreadable. The rain dripped from her curls, slid down the collar of her coat. The officer squinted at the ID. His smirk faltered. The badge number on his chest read 4721, but the name tag, Brenner, was more memorable than the number. "You seem to recognize my name," she said, voice even. Calm, like a piano note held too long. A flicker of something crossed his face. "Is there a problem, Miss Monroe?" "No," she said. "Unless you consider false stops a problem." His jaw ticked. He held the license too long before handing it back. No, before dropping it. It hit the ground like a dare. "Oops," he said, stepping back. Tessa's fingers curled once, then relaxed. She bent down into the rain, retrieved the card, wiped it with the inside of her coat. Brenner watched her in silence. The pause was intentional. Then, with a tight smile, he said, "We have standards in Harrow. Some people have trouble adjusting." The cruiser pulled away with a scream of tires. Water sprayed across her car door. She remained still, then spoke, barely above a whisper, into the mic stitched inside her lapel. "October 24th, 4:17 p.m., Harrow County Sheriff's Deputy Mark Brenner. No stated cause for traffic stop. Subject demonstrated recognizable awareness of false pretext. Intimidation effort confirmed." She rolled up the window. Across town, inside a poorly lit kitchen cluttered with trophies and framed certifications, Officer Brenner wiped rain from his brow and pulled out his phone. "Got a weird one tonight," he muttered into the receiver. "Tessa Monroe, just moved in. Says she's a consultant. Chicago plates." "You think she's watching something?" the voice on the other end asked. "Something's off. Runs clean. Too clean." The line crackled. "Want me to check deeper?" "Do it quietly." Back in her apartment, bare walls, one suitcase, nothing on the shelves. Tessa pulled off her damp coat and hung it with clinical precision. Her laptop powered up without a chime. On the screen, a secure FBI interface. Audio file uploading. The name at the top of the page, Special Agent Tessa Monroe. Assignment, Covert Civil Rights Audit. Focus, Harrow County Sheriff's Department. Officer of Interest, Mark Brenner. The cursor blinked at the end of her typed notes. She stared at it. Below the license image she had scanned was a handwritten warning slip. Citation, equipment violation, tail light, a lie, a fake charge, a box checked in permanent ink. But beneath that, a message. Welcome to Harrow. She exhaled once, slow, then typed a final line before shutting the laptop. He just gave us our first documented incident. The rain outside eased, but the silence left behind was heavier than thunder. The morning sun offered no warmth. It merely painted Harrow in pale, indifferent light. Tessa sat at a booth by the window of Millie's Diner, a place soaked in vinyl seats, burnt coffee, and the kind of small-town chatter that died the second a stranger walked in. She stirred her cup slowly, letting the bitter steam blur her vision. Outside, Sheriff Brenner's cruiser idled across the street, engine rumbling like a growl waiting to be heard. He had been parked there for 9 minutes. She checked. Behind the counter, Millie's smile stretched thin. "Refill, Miss Monroe?" Her hand hovered above the pot, waiting for permission. Not invitation. Permission. Tessa nodded once. The woman's knuckles were swollen with age, her blouse patterned with pale sunflowers. She poured with careful hands but said nothing more. Not today. Not with Brenner watching. A boy in a high school letterman jacket slipped into the booth across from Tessa. Pale skin, buzzed hair, too many bruises tucked beneath the collar of his hoodie. He spoke without looking up. "I should not be here." Tessa leaned forward slightly, her voice low, measured. "You asked to meet." He exhaled through his nose. "Not like this. My dad's a deputy. If he finds out, he won't. You're safe here." "Not really," he said, glancing toward the window. "Brenner's car's been there since I pulled in." Tessa did not look. "Tell me what happened." The boy swallowed hard, voice trembling around the words. "It started with a friend, Malik. We got pulled over after practice. Nothing wrong with the car. He just wanted to know what we were doing in that neighborhood." Tessa said nothing. Let silence pull more. "It happened again a week later. Then I got pulled. By myself. He told me I should think carefully about the company I keep." The boy's jaw clenched. He said Malik was trouble. Said I could end up in a report. That my scholarship might not survive bad influences. "What did you do?" "I stopped riding with Malik." He noticed. "You think Brenner did that on purpose?" "I know he did." Tessa tapped a single note into her phone under the table, time-stamping the conversation. Then she slid a small card across the table. "This is a secure line. If anything happens, if he approaches you again, call me, day or night." The boy pocketed it with shaking hands. "He makes you feel small, like you're not even worth explaining things to." "I know," Tessa said. "He counts on that." As the boy left, the diner returned to its quiet rhythm. A waitress laughed softly with a regular at the counter. Millie wiped down menus with slow, thoughtful circles. Across the street, Brenner's cruiser turned on its signal and followed the boy. Tessa paid in cash. No receipt. No lingering. She made it home before noon and found her front door ajar. The lock was not broken. Nothing smashed. No footprints. But the smell was different. A subtle trace of aftershave that did not belong to her. A chair moved half an inch off center. A cabinet opened that she never used. She closed it slowly, gently, as if trying not to wake something. She reached under the counter, opened the false panel, and checked the small black box with the blinking red light. Activated. Recording. Unaltered. Someone had come. But they had not known what to look for. Not yet. She turned on the shower. Let it run hot. Steam fogged the small mirror above the sink. She sat on the closed lid of the toilet, clothed, hands folded, watching the condensation drip slowly from the mirror's edge, watching her own face disappear behind it. That night, she drove again. Same route, same timing. 3rd week in a row. Brenner's cruiser appeared behind her at the intersection of Maple and Rose. She did not adjust her speed, did not glance back. Instead, she tapped the dashboard switch with a practiced flick. 2 audio channels began recording. Her phone screen lit up on the passenger seat. A message flashed across it. "Pattern established. Continue." He followed for 12 blocks this time. When he turned off suddenly, she pulled into the lot behind a 24-hour laundromat. Lights flickered. The buzz of fluorescent tubes filled the quiet. She did not get out. She sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, breathing in silence. Then her phone rang. Only one person had that number. Deputy Director Samuel Pierce's voice came through the earpiece, gravel mixed with authority. "We saw the cruiser on the tracker. Confirmation? Same route, longer tail, same intimidation pattern. Any verbal contact? None. But the diner incident earlier, secondary witness confirmed. Son of a deputy. Implication threats used to coerce social separation. Name? Michael Dobson, minor, cooperative." A pause. "You need to start drawing him closer." Tessa glanced into her rearview mirror. Just her reflection now. "I know. He thinks he's controlling the narrative. We let that idea grow a little longer. Do it carefully. One misstep. I understand the risk. You've never been the one I worry about, Agent Monroe." She ended the call. Outside, a light above the laundromat blinked twice, then went dark. She watched the darkened square where it had been, letting the emptiness speak. She did not move for a long time. Then, finally, she started the engine. The trap was not just being set. It was already working. The air was too still for a Tuesday morning. Harrow's Central Market lot was half full, enough cars to appear normal but not enough for anonymity. Tessa knew this because she had chosen it. She parked near the edge, a short walk from the coffee shop she had visited each Monday since her arrival. Same barista, same black coffee, no sugar. She entered like routine, but her body moved with awareness. The weight of her coat, the sway of the door behind her, the deliberate scan of her peripheral vision. To everyone else, she was just a woman checking her phone while waiting in line. But to the man who walked in 3 minutes later, off-duty, civilian clothes, badge hidden in a back pocket, she was a problem wrapped in calm. Officer Brenner. He paused just inside the threshold. Tessa felt it before she saw it. The energy changed, like a spark under the skin. His eyes locked on her. He did not smile. Instead, he moved through the crowd with predator's precision, stopping just behind her as the barista handed over her receipt. He did not speak. Instead, he bumped her, shoulder to shoulder, just enough force to send her coins skittering across the tile. Her gaze dropped with the sound. Brenner's voice followed. "Watch yourself." He did not help pick them up. The floor seemed louder than it should as she crouched to retrieve the change. Her movements were steady, unhurried, exposing no anger, no surprise. She rose slowly. Behind the counter, the barista hesitated before speaking. "Next?" Tessa took her coffee and moved to the corner table farthest from the window. She opened her laptop. The recording app was already live. A small green dot blinked beneath her index finger. Across the room, Brenner sat with another officer, tall, silent, younger. Tessa recognized the posture. Probationary. Watching. Learning what would be tolerated. Brenner leaned forward, voice rising just enough. "You know what the problem is with this town lately? Outsiders. Come in like they own the place. No respect. No understanding of how things work." The younger officer nodded slowly, lips pressed into a thin line. Tessa sipped her coffee. Used to be people appreciated structure, order. Now it's complaints this, accusations that. Everyone's a victim. She typed steadily. Words that did not matter. Her screen filled with code she would delete later. The audio mattered more. 20 minutes passed. Then Brenner stood. On his way out, he passed her table and accidentally brushed her coffee cup. The spill was quick. Dark liquid bled across her papers. Oops. He did not look back. Only after the door chimed behind him did anyone move. The barista approached with a handful of napkins and guilt in her eyes. "I am so sorry, ma'am." Tessa offered a practiced smile. "Not your fault." She cleaned the table methodically, each motion deliberate. Once finished, She packed her things and walked to her car. Her mind was already shaping the report. Subject: Officer Mark Brenner. Date: October 31st. Incident: escalated contact at public location. Harassment of witness. Pattern continues in non-official settings. Additional officer present. Secondary target may be indoctrinated or complicit. That night, she left the lights off when she entered her apartment. Not out of fear, out of strategy. The blinds remained open just an inch, enough for the camera lens embedded in the wall clock to catch the cruiser idling outside for exactly 26 minutes. No knock, no lights, just presence. A silent reminder. He was watching. But so was she. She sat in the dark, cross-legged on the floor, listening to the rain tick against the windows. The smell of wet concrete filled the room. She pressed record on her voice memo device. Audio note: Brenner has begun indirect surveillance. Subject seeks dominance through uncertainty. Confirmation of third harassment within 8-day window. Pattern suggests emotional investment. He believes I am alone. She looked toward the window again. The cruiser headlights blinked off. Moments later, it disappeared down the street. She stood and opened the cabinet beneath her sink. Inside, a second laptop. No cameras, no wireless, just encryption. She connected the day's footage and began splicing clips, time-stamped encounters, dialogue fragments, tracking logs. Each cut formed a pattern, a rhythm. Not of random intimidation, but of obsession. The kind that reveals itself only when someone believes they are above consequence. She labeled the file. Thread 3, Consistency of Contact. Outside, the wind shifted. A dog barked down the block. The silence that followed was familiar, heavy, waiting. She leaned back in her chair and whispered to no one. "You just told your story, Officer Brenner. And I am the one writing it down." The sound of the knock was wrong. It came just after dusk, 3 sharp raps, too firm for a neighbor, too casual for law enforcement protocol. Tessa Monroe froze mid-step in her living room. Her tea sat cooling on the windowsill. The apartment smelled faintly of peppermint and printer ink. She said nothing, made no move. The knock came again. Same rhythm. This time followed by a pause, then the faint sound of someone testing the doorknob. She moved silently to the front hallway, back pressed to the wall, breath barely audible. Her hand hovered near the side table drawer, not to open it, just to be ready. Then came the voice. "Ma'am, I'm with the town utilities. Got a report about a possible gas leak in the unit. Just need a minute to take a reading." A lie. There had been no call, no notice, no knock like this in the 3 weeks she had lived under the name Tessa Monroe. The voice was casual, but the pressure behind it was wrong. She stepped back, picked up her phone and pressed one button. Silent signal sent. FBI protocol. No words needed. "Ma'am," the voice called again, a little louder. "You in there?" Still, she said nothing. Footsteps retreated. Then the sound of movement near her side window. She crossed the apartment in 5 quick steps and flipped the switch behind the bookshelf. The camera embedded in the outside light clicked on. A single frame captured the profile of a man in a jacket marked Town Works, stepping away. It was not Brenner. But the look in his eyes, alert, evaluating, aware of the camera above the door, said enough. Brenner had sent someone. That night, Tessa did not sleep. She reviewed footage, cataloged timestamps, wrote 2 separate reports, one encrypted, one for eventual presentation. She highlighted what she knew, and more importantly, what she suspected. Brenner had activated a circle, possibly unofficial, but loyal. The intimidation was widening. The message was, "We are watching." By morning, the message shifted. At the grocery store, 2 cashiers who had previously smiled now avoided her eyes. One bagged her items with robotic silence. The other looked past her as though she had never existed. Even the manager, once warmly professional, did not greet her at the register. Tessa left without speaking. In the parking lot, a parking citation waited under her wiper blade. The ink was fresh. Improper alignment in designated space. The tires were well within the lines. At the bottom of the slip, a handwritten note. "Please learn the rules, Ms. Monroe." No signature. But the shape of the handwriting matched one from her collected evidence. She took a photo, added it to her folder. Indirect harassment, Phase 2. She drove to the edge of town, parked under a sycamore tree, and waited. 2 minutes later, Brenner's black SUV passed behind her. Slow, deliberate. He had not seen her, but she had seen him. Later that evening, her secure laptop buzzed with a coded alert. She decrypted it carefully, breath tight in her chest. Attempted intrusion detected. Unauthorized access protocol triggered. Origin IP, Harrow County Law Enforcement Network. She stared at the blinking cursor beneath the message. Brenner had crossed a line. Now it was not just surveillance, it was breach. She contacted Deputy Director Pierce through a direct line. "He's digging," she said, voice steady. "Into what?" "My accounts. Possibly my alias history. He has someone with digital access." There was a pause on the line. Then, "Can you maintain the cover?" "For now. But the circle around him is tightening. He is emboldened." "Good," Pierce replied. "That means he is about to make a mistake." Tessa closed the laptop, her face lit only by the glow of the desk lamp. She stood, moved to the window, and watched the empty street below. In the reflection, her eyes looked older. Not tired, just sharpened. Then the phone rang. Blocked number. She answered without hesitation. A familiar voice, low and mocking, curled through the speaker. "Still getting used to our little town, Ms. Monroe?" She said nothing. "Just thought I'd remind you. We keep track of newcomers here. Real close track." Click. He had called her. No denial now. No plausible distance. The game was over. The predator had spoken. And with it, the shift arrived. This was no longer quiet surveillance. This was the beginning of confrontation. She walked into her bedroom, removed the framed photo of her fake niece from the dresser, and unlocked the vault hidden behind it. Inside, her badge, her real name, her history. She stared at the shield for a moment, then closed the vault again. It was not time. Not yet. Let him believe the silence still protected him. Let him believe she was still just a woman in a borrowed name. The truth would come, and it would not knock. By the time she pulled into the lot behind Halden's Auto Repair, the November sky had collapsed into bruised gray. The wind stung. The cold came in sheets. But it was not the weather that raised Tessa's pulse. It was the man waiting beside the dumpsters. Officer Miguel Rivera. Young, broad-shouldered, badge barely broken in. He had watched her from a distance for weeks, nervous, silent, always on the edge of speaking. But tonight, he had called the burner number on her encrypted card. Said only 3 words. "I cannot unsee." Now he kept his hands in his jacket pockets as she approached, eyes darting toward the alleyway. No cruiser nearby, no visible camera. Still, he spoke without looking at her. "I have 8 minutes before I'm due back at the station." Tessa nodded once. "Then let's not waste them." He exhaled hard. Fog rose in front of his lips. "Brenner, he's using department terminals. Looking into your record. I saw it. He's looping in dispatch. Having them flag your location when your plates hit traffic cams." "Under what pretext?" "Suspicious movement patterns. But he's not logging it officially. No reports filed. Just watching you. Obsessively." Tessa studied him carefully. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I saw the footage. The accidental coffee spill. The grocery store. I've been reviewing old complaints, too. Half the town has a story like yours, but none of them stuck. And He paused. I just joined this force. I don't want my badge to mean what his does. She said nothing, letting his words hang heavy in the wind. Rivera swallowed. I can get you screenshots, logs, but you did not hear that from me. I understand, she replied. And you never saw me tonight. I never saw you. He started to turn, then hesitated. Be careful. He's escalating. You might be his obsession now, but next week, it could be someone else. Which is why this has to end now. Rivera walked off without another word. Tessa stood alone beside the hum of a broken soda machine, watching the alley swallow him whole. She reached into her coat, pressed a button hidden inside the seam. Recording saved. Rivera's testimony would not be official yet, but it was the first hairline crack in Brenner's wall of silence, and cracks always spread. Back at her apartment, the power flickered once, then held. But the cable line was dead. Her secure Wi-Fi jammed. Her backup mobile hotspot displayed no signal. Sabotage. She lit a candle and sat at the table, flipping open her field notebook, writing longhand. A habit from her academy days, paper never crashed. On page 12, she began drafting a new report. Subject: Escalation beyond surveillance. Brenner now engaging with third parties. Internal support structure exists. Rivera cooperative. Pending confirmation. Evidence of unlawful data access. Probable violation of federal information security standards. Pattern of intimidation now sustained across all major community contact points. Conclusion: containment no longer feasible. Next phase required. She paused, then underlined the last sentence. Twice. 2 days later, the shift came. At Harrow's annual Veterans Day assembly, townspeople filled the community auditorium. Rows of plastic flags on the walls. A quartet of high school students sang a trembling version of the national anthem. The mayor offered remarks about pride, tradition, sacrifice. Tessa sat in the last row, hands clasped, eyes scanning the crowd. Brenner was 3 rows ahead, not in uniform, not sitting alone. Beside him, a man in a dark suit with a county investigator badge clipped to his belt. Both turned once. The glance held no warmth. She had been made. She stayed through the ceremony, unmoving, her face a portrait of disinterest. When the applause came, she stood and moved toward the exit. Not fast, not hesitant, just calculated. Intentional. Brenner followed. He caught up outside by the row of veterans' plaques. He said nothing at first, just watched her studying the names etched in bronze. Then, with a mock-sincere tone, "You enjoying your little stay here?" She did not look at him. "Very much. You know, for a marketing consultant, you ask a lot of questions." She met his gaze then. "And for a patrol officer, you follow me an awful lot off duty." Brenner's smile was tight. People like predictability in towns like this. You don't blend as well as you think. You think I'm trying to blend? That stopped him. His mouth opened slightly, but the words hesitated. He studied her, really studied her, for the first time. Not as a nuisance, not as a threat, but as something unknown, unreadable. The silence stretched, long enough to turn discomfort into tension. Finally, he leaned in. Too close, his breath sharp with coffee and control. You don't belong here, and sooner or later, everyone in this town will know it. Tessa smiled, faint, slow, quiet. I think they already do. Then she walked away. Not fast, but with finality. Back in her apartment that night, she uploaded Rivera's audio, sent the first packet of confirmed evidence to Deputy Director Pierce with a one-line subject line. We are ready. Rain returned like a reckoning, not gentle, not shy, It battered rooftops and windows with the insistence of a long-denied truth. Tessa Monroe stood inside Harrow's public records office just before closing time, her coat dripping water onto linoleum that had not been mopped since morning. Across the counter, a clerk with dyed blonde roots and nervous eyes shuffled papers without purpose. "You said your name was—" "Monroe," Tessa said. "Just looking into zoning approvals from the last 6 months." The clerk nodded, not meeting her eyes. "Usually takes a day or two. I can wait." Something in Tessa's tone made the woman pause. She glanced at the clock. 5 minutes to close. "I might have a few recent copies in back." The woman disappeared. Tessa waited. 30 seconds. Then 1 full minute. She walked quietly toward the service hallway, heels muffled by the faded carpet. At the junction, she paused, long enough to hear voices behind the filing room door. "She's still out there. I thought you said she was just some consultant." "No, she's something else, and I think Brenner knows it." Tessa stepped away before they could finish. The records never arrived. Back outside, the rain had thickened into a curtain. She did not go home. She drove instead, past the elementary school, past the shuttered post office, toward the northern bluff where cell towers blinked red above the tree line. There, she parked beside a rusted overlook and waited. At 7:46 p.m., the black SUV pulled in behind her. Brenner. He made no effort to hide, no attempt at pretense, just walked to her window and tapped twice. She rolled it down halfway. "This is getting old," she said. "You know what else is getting old?" he replied, grinning. "People like you coming here, pretending you care about this town, pretending you belong." His voice had changed. No more performance, just rot, unfiltered and arrogant. Tessa said nothing. Brenner leaned closer. "I've been watching you. Traffic cams, market security, cafe receipts. You leave a trail." She looked up at him, calm, cold. "And you've been following it." "Damn right," he said. "You don't belong here. And when I find out who you really are, I'll—" "You already have," she interrupted. Silence. A beat passed. Then 2. "What?" Tessa opened her coat slowly. From the inner pocket, she withdrew a worn black case and flipped it open. Gold shimmered beneath the car's interior light. "Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent Tessa Monroe." Brenner's breath caught. His face changed, not with fear, but with calculation. Even now, he searched for an angle. "You're bluffing." Behind them, headlights illuminated the overlook. A second vehicle, unmarked, quiet, deliberate. Deputy Director Samuel Pierce stepped out, his gray coat billowing like smoke in the rain. 2 more agents followed, windbreakers glinting in the storm. "No bluff," Pierce said, approaching. "We've had eyes on you for months, Officer Brenner. You've made this easier than we ever expected." Brenner stepped back, soaked now, his mouth opening, but no words came. "You're under federal investigation for civil rights violations, digital intrusion, harassment, and the abuse of police authority under color of law," Pierce continued. "You have no idea who I am," Brenner spat. "We know exactly who you are," Tessa replied. "And so does your department." She stepped out into the rain, meeting him eye to eye. "You built your power on fear, on silence, on people too scared or too tired to fight back." She leaned in, voice low, steady. "But I am not tired, and I am not afraid." Brenner turned to run. He did not get far. The agents were faster. Handcuffs clicked behind his back as he shouted curses into the wind. Tessa stood still, unmoved. The rain slid from her face like something shed. Pierce approached again, clipboard in hand. "The chief's been informed. Local press will get a sanitized version tonight. You've got 12 signed statements, 6 witness recordings, and a digital trail that goes back 5 years." Not enough, Tessa said quietly. He's not the only one. I know. She handed him a flash drive from her coat pocket. Internal coordination logs, watch list names, messages he sent to other officers, and 2 employees in city records helping him track residents. Pierce accepted it. Time to burn it all down, she said. No, Pierce replied. Time to rebuild. Behind them, Brenner shouted something unintelligible from the back seat of the SUV. No one responded. Back in her apartment later that night, Tessa lit a candle against the darkness. She sat at her kitchen table, boots still wet, coat still clinging to her shoulders. The photo of her academy class watched from the shelf. She reached for her pen and began writing names, not of the guilty, but of those still silent. The silence inside Harrow's town hall was different now. It was not the hush of avoidance or the stillness of power unchallenged. It was anticipation, the kind that fills a room just before a verdict is read. Tessa Monroe stood near the back wall, arms folded, her FBI credentials visible for the first time in this town. No aliases, no rehearsed smiles, just the truth. Finally spoken aloud. She was not alone. Beside her stood Deputy Director Pierce, his expression carved from stone. The Civil Rights Division team filled the seats around them, attorneys, analysts, observers. At the front, the Harrow Oversight Committee sat in stiff chairs, facing the town's police leadership and department counsel. At center, Chief Warren, his jaw clenched, his reputation unraveling in real time. To his left, Officer Rivera, badge polished, shoulders squared. He had requested to speak. The chairwoman adjusted her microphone. You may begin. Rivera stepped forward slowly, unfolding a paper from his pocket. I joined the Harrow County Sheriff's Department because I believed in service, in structure, in doing the right thing, even when it's hard. He paused. No theatrics, just breath. But what I saw inside this department, what I ignored for too long, was something else. He looked straight at the chief. I watched Officer Brenner target residents who looked like me, who looked like my mother. I told myself I was new, that it was not my place, that things would change. His voice caught for just a second. They didn't. He held up a printed citation, one of Brenner's false violations. This was routine. This wasn't one bad day. It was a system, a method, and silence let it continue. He turned to the audience. To the people of Harrow, I failed you when I stayed quiet. I see that now. I'm standing here because someone finally made enough noise that I couldn't ignore it anymore. His eyes met Tessa's, just for a moment. Then he sat. The room remained still. Then, from the front row, a woman rose. She was elderly, skin the color of burnished oak, a wool shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. She held up a faded photograph. This is my grandson, Elijah. He was pulled over 11 times in 3 months. No tickets, just questions, just warnings. Her hands trembled. He thought it was his fault, started walking everywhere, quit his job. She held the photo higher. I filed complaints, 3 of them. Never heard back. Her voice lowered, rasped with age and memory. You can't measure what this takes from someone. But I remember the sound of his voice when he said, "They don't want me here, Grandma." She turned slowly, faced the officers. None of you said anything. She sat down, and one by one, more followed. A teacher, a small business owner, a teenager, barely old enough to drive, whose voice cracked as he described being ordered out of his mother's car at gunpoint for a routine stop. Each voice wove into the next, a pattern, a tapestry, a reckoning. When it ended, Tessa stepped forward. She did not read from notes. She carried no folder. She simply began. Every name you heard today, Every story is a thread in the fabric of what your department became when no one looked. Her voice was even, but her gaze cut through every corner of the chamber. For too long, you confused silence with peace, compliance with order. You believed the absence of protest meant justice had been served. She paused, letting the truth breathe. It had not. Behind her, the agents began distributing sealed documents. Pierce explained them. Federal referrals, Department of Justice oversight, policy reform mandates, consent decree drafts. Chief Warren did not protest. His hands remained folded, his eyes fixed on the desk. Tessa turned to the committee. This investigation is not about vengeance. It is about restoration. But make no mistake, restoration only begins when truth is no longer feared. The chairwoman asked the final question. Agent Monroe, what would justice look like to you? Tessa looked out at the residents seated together now, divided once, connected now through pain and testimony. It looks like hearing the sound of their names. She gestured gently toward the stack of printed complaint forms. Not buried, not dismissed. Spoken, written, seen. That evening, Harrow's town square filled not with protest, but with light. Candles held by gloved hands, paper lanterns marked with names, families standing together beneath the courthouse steps. Tessa stood at the edge of the gathering, anonymous again by choice. The wind was soft for once, the cold bearable. Rivera approached quietly. They're calling it a vigil, he said. Tessa nodded. It's more than that. He watched the lanterns rise into the sky, dozens of them. What happens now? The paperwork, she said. The lawsuits, the training, the slow, hard parts. He nodded. Will you stay? No, she said gently. You do not need me anymore. She offered a small, sad smile. You never did. You just needed the truth to be louder than the fear. A young girl nearby released her lantern. It floated upward, its glow trembling like a heartbeat. Rivera watched it rise, and Tessa disappeared into the night. The first spring rain came softly. No thunder, no warning. Just the quiet patter of renewal. It tapped against the windows of Harrow's newly renamed Justice House, once the town courthouse, now home to the Civilian Oversight Committee, a transparency office, and a legal aid desk for residents filing civil rights grievances. Inside, sunlight filtered through the tall windows, warming the waiting area where 3 families sat. Fathers holding toddlers, elderly women with folded complaint forms, a nervous teenager clutching a manila envelope. They were not afraid. Not anymore. Behind the front desk sat Miriam Ellis, once a school librarian, now the committee's elected secretary. Her tone was calm but firm as she explained the intake process, guiding each resident through their documentation. Every word she spoke, every box she helped check, was a quiet defiance of the silence that once ruled here. Upstairs, a laminated poster filled the hallway wall. It bore 27 names, residents who had filed formal complaints in the last 5 years, ignored until the FBI investigation cracked open the truth. At the top, in bold serif font, a quote, "Accountability begins with listening. Special Agent Tessa Monroe." Tessa's name had become both myth and memory in Harrow. Some claimed she still lived nearby, working undercover in another small town. Others said she had returned to Washington. Few knew for certain. What remained was her impact. Her story had been picked up by state outlets, then national ones, not as a scandal, but as a case study, the Harrow precedent. Civil rights lectures referenced it. Police reform panels cited it. At Quantico, her report was required reading. But here, in Harrow, she had left behind something quieter. A new patrol division led by Lieutenant Rivera, now permanently promoted. His officers wore body cams by default. His unit held weekly community briefings, not just crime reports. He sat now in a modest office with mismatched chairs and a coffee pot that never stayed full. A knock came at the door. "Come in," he said. It was the teenage boy from the diner, the one who had once told Tessa, "He makes you feel small." "Michael," Rivera smiled. "You ready?" The boy nodded, uniform crisp, shoes polished, nervous energy buzzing beneath his posture. His application to the junior cadet program had been accepted 2 weeks earlier. His mother's signature barely legible at the bottom of the form, tear stains smudging the ink. Rivera handed him a slim binder. "This isn't just about how to give a warning or fill a report. It's about who you choose to be when no one's watching." Michael swallowed hard. "That's what she said. Agent Monroe." Rivera nodded. "She said the badge wasn't protection. It was permission." Rivera looked out the window. Across the square, lanterns still hung from the trees, a tradition born from that vigil. Harrow kept them up now, not for mourning, for memory. "Permission," he echoed. "To serve, or to harm." Michael nodded slowly, the weight of it settling over him. Rivera handed him a notebook. The first page was blank, but on the inside cover, in Tessa Monroe's careful handwriting, were 6 words. "Make sure they remember the names." That evening, the mayor hosted a town forum, an annual tradition now. Community members sat in folding chairs beneath open skylights. No one spoke from podiums anymore. Instead, the officers sat among the people, answered, listened, took notes. Chief Rodriguez gave her report with humility, not pride. Complaint resolution time has dropped to 2 days. Traffic stop disparities are down 79%. Use of force is reviewed within 24 hours. The crowd clapped, not wildly, just enough. Then, one by one, voices rose from the crowd. A grocery clerk. A teacher, a retired nurse. Not with complaints this time, but with ideas. How do we fund youth mentorship? Can we build better street lighting on the east side? Can we teach constitutional rights in the schools? The conversation no longer circled around fear. It had moved on to possibility. And still, her name hovered above it all. That night, miles away, in a small apartment in D.C., Tessa Monroe closed her casebook for the last time. She had returned to field duty, quietly, without ceremony. Her name appeared on task force rosters, tucked into national audits, whispered in trainings meant to rebuild public trust. She lived alone, spoke little, worked often. But on her windowsill sat a folded lantern, weathered, soft from rain. A name written in faint ink across one panel. Elijah. She had kept it. She lit a candle beside it. Not for him, for all of them. The doorbell rang. A courier stood in the hallway holding a small parcel. Inside, a certificate. Harrow, North District High Junior Cadet Inaugural Class, Honorary Advisor, Agent Tessa Monroe. She did not smile, but she exhaled. And for the first time in months, she wrote her name in pen again. Under it, she added 5 words. I still remember their names. Then she folded the letter, tucked it beneath the lantern, and turned off the light. Outside, the city buzzed. Inside, silence finally felt clean.